I was told that the theme here was changed utterly. Irish unity, Brexit, independence, Scottish independence, what's happening in America with Trump, austerity, the future of the EU, globalisation, all of these things impact on all of us. And of course, Yeats's quote was, all changed utterly, eternal beauty is born. But things didn't change, and all the potential to change. There was attempts at change. After the rising in 1916, there was the famous 1918 general election, and of course, all of Ireland, just like the North is now, like Scotland is, was part of the United Kingdom. You know, sometimes people talk about Ireland as being a colony, which of course it was, but it was, from a British perspective, much more fundamental than that. It was part of the United Kingdom. And they returned 105 seats across all of the 32 counties. In that election, Sinn Féin stood on a platform of total independence, and they won 73 of those seats. And on the same day that they met, the IRA struck for freedom in Tipperary, and the British is always sent in the army. That's the way it is in Ireland. I remember, and I was born here in Glasgow and brought up in Glasgow. It wasn't particularly political, but it felt Irish, and I went home in '68 with a job in Derry. And I remember going from, I was a site engineer, going from one site to another, and seeing the first British soldiers arriving in the streets of Derry and putting up the barricades in August '69. 1 month before, in July '69, the Yanks had landed on the moon. And I thought, there's something wrong here, something not right. I'm watching Irish history repeating itself in front of my own eyes. So you have to remember that the first initiatives in the peace process came from Sinn Féin, secret meetings with Fianna Fáil, then in opposition, then with the Irish government. And it's not well known, but Maggie Thatcher actually authorised the first meeting between Republicans and her government in 1990. Now, probably MI5 people she sent, but we knew that, we weren't stupid, but they were still representatives of the British government. And that led on to the ceasefires in 94, the collapse of the ceasefire under John Major's refusal to make any political moves, the resumption of the ceasefires in 97 and the Good Friday Agreement in 98. Some of the core things in that: power sharing, compulsory in direct proportion to the votes, the All-Ireland institutions, where the Assembly in the North and the Cabinet in the South met regularly, and sectoral meetings where education could meet education, and health and agriculture right across the board. The East-West, which brought in the devolved administrations of Scotland, Wales, Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey, and of course the North, and Dublin with Westminster. The release of the POWs, the political prisoners, the demilitarisation and putting arms beyond use from an IRA perspective, all of that was huge momentum that set up the institutions. But they were always going to be difficult. Dealing with unionism, dealing with first the UUP, the various collapse of the institutions from 98 up to 2003. And the big divide is that Sinn Féin is a left-wing party. Unionism is on the right. Unionism is for the United Kingdom. Republicans, Sinn Féin, are for a united Ireland. And then in the middle of all this, you have Brexit. Unionists are for leave, Republicans are for to remain. So three big division lines running through all of these power-sharing institutions in the North. Hugely difficult to keep the situation alive. And then when you have austerity brought in on the back of a promise from various British governments that there would be an economic dividend if the institutions were up and working, or a peace dividend. We never seen the peace dividend. All we got was austerity and more austerity. And even though we did argue in one mitigating situations around the bedroom tax and around social welfare, it was another huge difficulty in trying to keep things going, because we were certainly not prepared to implement Tory policy in Ireland. And then the events of recent times. And politics is, if you like, heightened again in recent times. It's a bit of a challenge for me knowing that because our party is in transition, we're moving on to a younger and more able generation. Young men and young women are coming up. But I just thought the politics now was just so electric after 10 years of shadowboxing that what do I do? You're 71, you believe in transition, you argue within the party for transition, you want more young people, you particularly want more young women coming. So I stood down and we had a contest. You don't want elections on a good manifesto in the 4 or 5 or 6 weeks of an election campaign. You want elections and the hard work and the real work you do or don't do in between elections. And that's day in, day out, evening in, evening out, and a lot of nights, working with your people, being on the ground, knowing what affects their lives, and then taking it into the political institution.